Internet Radio. And again, we're right back in the group, Sports Rap Podcast. So this is where you can find us for the day. Like I said, still working on the technical difficulties here. We had a power outage, and we're still booting things up. So we are here with you, like we say, on Facebook. So you know where we are. Get over there, tune in, check us out. Like Baldy said last week, we know y'all was off. We know you back to work,
right.
And we know it's Monday, but you don't have to have us up on the screen.
I'm on
vacation. You got audio too. You got video and audio.
Right.
So you don't have to be looking at us. You can minimize the screen and you can still hear our voices giving you what we always give you each and every Monday.
Right.
So we're going to start off today and we are going to talk about game 3
right.
of the NBA Finals. I wish Baldy had been here because we could have a great time with this because of some of the things we mentioned last week. Excuse me. And we talked about the matchups. And I was talking to someone else at work the other day, and I realized that the matchups that we talked about were not the matchups that came into play basically in games 1 and games 2, which allowed the Suns to go to a 2-0 lead at home.
Right. They were good games now.
Yeah, you know, some of the matchups that Milwaukee was using kind of struck me as odd, where they basically gave the advantages to Phoenix and made it somewhat easy for them in the first game.
Third game got better though.
But yesterday, going back home,
that crowd.
The Milwaukee Bucks had the same kind of game 3 that they had in the conference finals against the Nets, where they came back and they blew them out, and then they eventually went on to tie the series, and then further eventually went on to win that series. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that they're going to win this series, but they're in the right frame of mind. They're on the right position, on the right track.
Right.
So yesterday, one of the things I noticed was the very aggressive nature of Giannis, which was not present as much in games 1 and 2. The defense was revved up as far as on the side of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yes, it was.
And, you know, it could have been that comfortability of playing at home in front of the home crowd.
And he got help. He got help
you
too.
know, Chris Middleton finally had a good game so far in this series. Drew Holiday, of course, no doubt, finally had a solid game.
And he had defense too.
Yesterday.
Yes, he did.
And that helped along the way. And then Giannis, with I think his second or third straight 40-point game.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, this guy
beast.
A week or two ago just had a hyperextended knee.
That don't tickle.
And he's back and he scored 40.
Back to back.
Back to back. So, you know, they are in a series now, if you will. Although it is still 2-1. But they're in a series now.
Dogfight Wednesday
yes, sir. I think they did a tremendous job on Devin Booker
I about to say, what happened
yesterday.
He just gave up.
And I can't say
he wasn't hurt.
I can't say that he gave up.
The coach took him out.
But I mean, at that point, he was struggling. You know, sometimes as a coach, you need to do that for the sake of your players, because things look different when you're in the game, as opposed to being on the bench watching the game from the sideline. So
he wasn't hurt.
I trust and respect Monty Williams in that fact, where he did mention in the coach's interview yesterday, where they asked him, what did he say to Devin Booker about something? He said, I didn't say anything to him. I didn't want to get in his head. So that means that he was paying attention to what was going on the court. And again, like I said, they did a tremendous job on Devin Booker yesterday, holding him to 10 points.
Yes, they did.
So
Drew Holiday,
what I'm guessing and what it looked like to me was they threw different looks at him.
Yes, they did.
And they just challenged him and made every shot that he took difficult. Like in the first 2 games, he got to points where he had wide open looks.
Chris Paul got him in the ball.
he had moments in games 1 and 2 with his athleticism and his craftiness where he could get to the shots that he wanted. They took a lot of that away yesterday.
Real early.
So as a player of his caliber, even though he didn't show it an awful lot, you get frustrated. And you have moments in games where you're trying to figure out what's going on. And great coaching and great gamesmanship on the Bucks, where you have those moments as a player, and then it looks like or feels like you get into a rhythm, and then they switch it up so you don't catch on.
Yeah,
so that's what I mean when I say they did a tremendous job of defending him yesterday. They challenged DeAndre Ayton more. He got in foul trouble fairly early.
Yes, he did.
And he was unable to be out there for stretches of games where the Suns had to play small.
He only had like 11, 12 points in the first half. Something like that.
So they did a really good job all the way across the board. As far as playing, executing on both ends of the floor yesterday. And, with their focus and their attention to detail on specific players. So I honestly still think that the Suns are going to win the series.
Even Milwaukee won Wednesday night day?
Yeah, I still think the Suns are going to win the series. I'm just not sure how many games. And the thing for me is,
and Booker had another bad game.
Well, this is the thing for me. The matchups that we talked about when Baldy was here last week, and I've said this to some other people, and I'm not saying that they are the same player, but one of the things we both mentioned was the fact that Giannis is going to get his, and we saw how Devin Booker was playing, and we saying Devin Booker was going to get his. The difference between them, Devin Booker is the better shooter,
Giannis the better
and the more athletic player between the two. So in a sense, we kind of figured that they would somewhat cancel each other out.
Chris Paul.
Then it would be on the supporting cast. And what we thought was a key matchup that we didn't really see much until last night, we both said was the Chris Paul Drew Holiday matchup. But I think, no discredit to Drew Holiday, because I love Drew Holiday ever since he came in the league. He was an all-star when he was here with the Sixers, and he just went on and improved his game and improved his career to where he is now, one of the top guards in the league, top point guards in the league.
Top 3, top 4.
And he has that versatility where he can score from the perimeter, he can create his own shot, and he can post up. And he's doesn't shy away from the contact. He can use either hand finishing around the rim. So I think a little bit more of that will keep the Bucks in it. But I also think the reason I say I feel like the Suns are going to win the series is, even though I like the player Drew Holiday, I think the Suns have an advantage at that position, where Chris Paul is at the helm of running that team for the most part. And one of the things I've said to people more recently, and I've said it for a long time, is that Chris Paul was a player that I felt could take over a game without scoring a point.
Oh yeah.
And I still feel that way.
That's how good he is.
We've moved into this somewhat craziness in the NBA of what they like to call positionless basketball. But when the playoffs come around, it's a whole different animal. And you have to have that stability. You have to be able to play half-court offense. And you need a point guard that can do some things. He knows when to score. He knows when and how to get other players involved on that. So I think that's where the Suns have a small advantage. And again, no discredit to Drew Holiday, because I love him as a point guard as well. But I just think the experience and the nature of Chris Paul as being what he is as far as at that point guard position will give them just a small advantage. I also think that the athleticism and the somewhat no fear of the Suns' young players is another small advantage they have over the bench players of some of these supporting cast for Milwaukee.
Who's that guy that dunk, had a nice little dunk?
Cam Johnson.
Yeah, he's good. He's
really
fearless.
good.
Yeah.
The Sixers, I'm sure, are kicking themselves in the butt.
Probably
Some fans are probably looking for Brett Brown right now.
Like, what is he doing?
With that trade with Mikal Bridges, although he only had 4 points last night.
Yeah.
I saw an interview with him. This is his first go around in the playoffs, his first time in the finals.
Good,
So the veterans on the Milwaukee Bucks team might have played a little bit of part in that as far as what they were doing on defense for him after he scored 27 points in game 2.
Right.
But I like the athleticism of that unit.
Right.
Those were two players in particular, Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson.
Right.
As opposed to the more so one-trick ponies that the Bucks have. And I mean the one-trick ponies, I mean it's the shooters that they have. The Pat Connaughtons, the other little guy. I forget his name, escapes me right now, but you know who I'm talking about. Brent Forbes.
Right.
You know, these guys are more so one-trick ponies. The other one that I do like for the Bucks is the Bobby Portis factor. Always ready, always comes in and does his job, surprise that energy.
Right.
The one thing I do feel like I need to see from the Bucks is he did it last night, but I need to see it more consistently than it has been in most recent history. Chris Middleton.
Yeah. He gets to that line, man.
Because he can do some of the things that Devin Booker can does, but again, I still feel Devin Booker is the more athletic and
he's younger,
the better shooter.
Yeah.
But Chris Middleton can do some of the same things as well.
Right.
And I think he just needs to do it on a more consistent basis,
right, exactly.
To help them on, as opposed to him being the closer on that team. I think with him being able to do the things that he can do, it also helps Giannis, where Giannis can get a lot more easy buckets. I also feel like Giannis, and Baldy mentioned this last week as well, that Giannis needs to take a half a step back and look at what was going on when he couldn't play, how those guys performed, and then reincorporate himself into that type of flowing offense where the ball moved a lot more and a lot quicker.
Right.
I think they did some of that last night, hence he got 41 points.
Right.
And a lot of easy buckets. Excuse me, a lot of easy buckets in that game. So I think that he is beginning to see it. The coaches are beginning to see it. Hopefully, it will carry over into Game 4, and will make it even more. Which is, like I said, at that point, if they tie it up, then we got a really good series, and it's going to come down to the best of 3. So again, like I mentioned, I'm happy, and I would love to see Monty Williams and Chris Paul win the title. I also admire and respect the play and the thought process of Devin Booker, who has been in the league and been with Phoenix for his whole career. This run is his first time ever
how many years
in the playoffs. I'm not sure how many years, 4 or 5, something like that. And he re-signed with them at one point. After his rookie deal, he re-signed with them. So he rode it out. And like I said, we're in this new age of basketball where these guys are chasing rings. And then they want to go and play with their friends. They want to build what they've been dubbed as super teams. So I have a lot more respect for him for staying there and just waiting for his opportunity. And you know, good things happen when you stick with your instincts and what you feel is the right thing to do. They ended up bringing Monty Williams into the picture, and then they ended up bringing Chris Paul into the picture, and look at where they are. So I respect him a lot for that. So I would love to see him get a ring as well. And we see what happened in the East with the Brooklyn Nets. And everybody I know is going to say, oh, well, they were injured and this and that and whatever. It just proves our point of what we said, that it doesn't always work.
The grass is always green.
It doesn't always work.
Yeah.
So you can build those super teams or whatever, but if you don't win,
LeBron, I mean, won the first year.
Was it worth it? You know, you have those questions,
right?
And you build this super team, and you know, then you have these questions surfacing around: was it really worth it? Like Frank just said, when LeBron went to Miami,
they ain't won the first year. They
I
lost
was
to
telling
Dallas.
people,
They lost to Dallas.
I told people, that
lost in 6, I think.
I didn't think they were going to win it in their first year.
No, they
and
didn't.
A lot of people told me I was crazy.
Chris Bosh.
A lot of people told me I didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah, right.
And what I think, some of the things I said to them was, said, you've got to understand this. We're talking about basketball.
Play together for a while.
You've got
chemistry.
One guy in Dwayne Wade that was already on the team that had already won a ring.
06.
I think he won. Did he win 2? Well, he'd already won a ring.
He won
already. So he had been to the mountaintop and achieved it.
Dallas.
Then you got the issue with Shaq leaving that team, and Dwayne Wade took over as the man on that team. So he was pretty much the guy who had the ball in most of the critical moments in his hands. And then you bring in 2 other guys who were the same thing on their previous teams.
Chris Bosh with Toronto, and
it's only one basketball.
Yeah.
So these guys, and again, I said to you, I said, I'm not saying that they won't get there.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that we all know how the playoffs go, and at that point, it's only one basketball.
Right.
And how and will they be able to decipher on any given moment who's going to take that last shot after they're coming together from teams, 2 of them coming from teams where they were the man, going to a team where the man was there. One of the small things I think that set Dwayne Wade apart in that trio was he took a back seat. He had already won a ring. So he took a back seat and said to LeBron and Chris Bosh, look, y'all can do it. Y'all do it. I'm going to do my part, but y'all go ahead and swing away.
Right.
You know, and I think that was a great gesture for him, which helped them achieve what they did achieve.
Right.
But the first year, it usually
don't work out like that.
Doesn't work out the way you envision it when you do things on paper and put rosters together. And again, we've seen that we saw that this year with the Brooklyn Nets.
Remember back in the day with the Lakers, with Karl Malone, Gary Payton, they were old anyway.
In the regular season, those guys played, I think, a total of 9 games together.
That's terrible.
So you dealt with injuries, and
no chemistry.
You know, you have to be able to play some type of defense. Like I said, I was always questioning their defense throughout their whole run this year, because you can score the ball, you can have 3 offensive players, but at some point, when you get to the playoffs, as you get deeper into the playoffs, you have to be able to stop people. Because we know basketball is a game of runs. And the object of the game is to put the ball in the basket. So other teams are going to also have players that can score. They may not have as many as you, but they're going to have players that can score the ball. So you have to be able to play some defense and stop some people. And we saw what happened. You know, they had the injuries. Yes, okay, I get that. But when you build teams like that, and you have those caliber of players, the 3 that they had, who are on the business side eating up the majority of the cap space, then you limit yourself on your role players. Where your role players begin to be borrowed players because you don't have enough money to pay them. Then they're borrowed players. So like Blake Griffin, for example, perfect example. Got a buyout from Detroit, and for some reason he played a little bit better than he was playing in Detroit his last run there.
He played pretty good.
Okay, because he thought that he was going to go deep in the playoffs and have a chance to play for a championship.
And get
ultimately, it didn't happen.
Get a contract.
So there's a very good chance that he won't be back.
Yeah, pretty much.
DeAndre Jordan initially with Kyrie Irving, when Kevin Durant was hurt, was somewhat a major part of that offense scheme. When they made the trade for James Harden, DeAndre Jordan was almost non-existent.
Right. You didn't hear from him.
Okay. the Brooklyn Nets had Joe Harris, who became very inconsistent for them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So again, when you have stars of that caliber, and you have 3 of them,
right,
again, who eat up the majority of your salary cap, it becomes difficult to bring in other role players, or again, you're limited on what type of role players you can bring in and be able to pay them and expect them to perform at a high level for you. So we'll see what happens. Again, they have 2 days off.
I don't think it's gonna work.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen there.
They're gonna have issues every year.
I think you're gonna see an overhaul on that roster somewhat.
They can't stay healthy.
Because of the way this season played out. But
KD,
Game 4 Wednesday, 9 p.m. on ABC, 8 p.m. I'm sorry, on ABC in Milwaukee once again, and we'll see if Milwaukee has enough to tie the series up, or we'll see if the Suns can bounce back and take that 3. I think there's going to be a lot of urgency. I think there's also going to be a lot of get back, if you will, especially on the part of Devin Booker, because of the game that he had, only scoring 10 points.
If he scored 40,
I think he's going to be looked to be a lot more aggressive. And again, he's got 2 days off, so he's got plenty of time to study the film and try and figure out what they were doing and how they changed. And in a lot of ways, for some players, it's a bad thing when you give certain players that much time
what you think is going to happen
to recoup. I think the Suns are going to win.
I like Milwaukee. It might be an overtime game.
Like I said, I think the Suns are going to win because I think Devin Booker is going to figure some things out beforehand and know how to deal with it, as opposed to being in the game and having to try and adjust on the fly.
I think the crowd's going to help Milwaukee.
So the crowd is always going to help, but again, like I said, I think the game that Devin Booker had last night it is on his mind. And again, like I said, he's got 2 days to look at film. I also think Mikal Bridges is he only had 4 points, but I think he's going to play better. I'm not saying he's going to go out and score another 27 or whatever. And then it depends on what happens with Milwaukee. Like I said, Drew Holiday and Middleton played great yesterday.
If they play Wednesday night,
will they play great again?
If they play good, I
don't think Wednesday's game is going to be a blowout either way on either side.
I think it's going to be a close game.
But I think it's going to be, like you said, Frank, a dogfight. A tight game.
Somebody going to probably win by 2-3. It might be an overtime game.
It may just barely touch a double-digit win, but we'll definitely see.
Milwaukee's going to squeak it out.
We'll see what happens on Wednesday. So moving along, since we are talking about basketball, and the other big story involving ESPN, if you haven't seen it, if you haven't heard it, was the issue with Rachel Nichols, who hosts The Jump on ESPN.
What did she say?
And it was an issue with the sideline reporter Maria Taylor, who was African American, who was replaced, who replaced Rachel Nichols for the sideline reporter during the finals. And there was an issue, I think it was last year, where there was a meeting, and Rachel Nichols in that meeting mentioned some things about, in reference to Maria Taylor, and also mentioned some things about ESPN, where I'm paraphrasing now, where she kind of went into the lines and said that ESPN gave her more jobs because they're struggling with their diversity and their issues with that particular, and we use this word, racism, and their diversity, she called it. The story got leaked from another employee who presented it to Maria Taylor, and it kind of blew up in the news. Maria Taylor was since apologized to by Rachel Nichols. She did apologize to her, and Maria Taylor took it in stride. And I think some of the salt added to that wound was the simple fact that Maria Taylor's contract is about to be up with ESPN. And you know, the bigger issue was the fact that ESPN, we know how ESPN has been falling off the last several years.
Mm-hmm.
Their issue with the diversity, whether it be male or female, or black and white racial issues or whatever.
Right.
So Maria Taylor basically, or pretty much took it in stride, you know, and she said that her main focus is to uplift other African American female journalists,
Right.
and letting them know that that they can end up where she is and pursue when she's opening the door and she's giving them the blueprint on what they can do in that situation. So as we talked last week, we talked about the Sha'Carri Richardson, and again, what I mentioned was, I said that particular issue was very easily, and the door was wide open for people to bring racism into that picture.
Right.
Here again, it opens the door once again, where the racism card can be played very easily. Although the slight difference is, we know the history of ESPN, most recent history of ESPN and their issues.
Right.
The problem is, part of the problem is the fact that what was actually said was recorded and presented to Maria Taylor.
Right.
In my opinion, if I had been that fly on the wall, what was said was somewhat in private. And I believe, or I feel that if you're in private, and it wasn't as private as you could possibly have it,
right.
But in my instance, I feel like if in the privacy of your own home, you should be able to say whatever you want to say, feel however you want to feel, get it off your chest, get it out.
Right.
When you're in that business setting, you have to be very careful in not so much what you say sometimes, but sometimes how you say it.
That's right, too.
And you can look at the information getting back to Maria Taylor in two ways. You can look at it as someone pulling her coattail, as to what could possibly be going on, what could possibly happen. Just a matter of the way it was done.
Right.
So for me personally, if I was in that position and I was privy to that information, and I was in good standing with Maria Taylor, I think I would have handled it a little differently. I think I would have pulled her coattails and somewhat left it as a blank statement, where I would possibly say something to the likes of, listen, you know, your friends or alleged friends and co-workers now with so-and-so, just watch your back.
Right.
They may not have your best interest at heart. And
Right.
kind of leave it at that. I don't think I would have went as far as to actually forward her the recording to see what was truly said. So again, there you have people that will say, yeah, well, I would have told her, I would have recorded and sent it to her anyway, just so she would know. But when it boils down to it, it then becomes Maria Taylor's fight. And I feel like you introduce it to her and let that be her fight, and let her deal with that fight the way she chooses best for her. I feel like if you play what was actually said, or send her what was actually said, you kind of force her hand a little bit as to where she may swing a little bit more going in one direction as opposed to going in a different direction.
Right.
So, you know, like I said, Rachel Nichols has since apologized to her, and you know, it is what it is. She's back on the air. Maria Taylor, I keep saying Tyler. Taylor is still doing her job, and I just look forward to see what she does once her contract is up if they renew her contract or if she needs to move on. But I also see the argument and the dialogue that people could have with it, where Rachel Nichols appeared to be a little disturbed because Maria Taylor was doing sideline at football games, and now she's been brought into the NBA.
Yeah, she's doing a good job too.
She has been doing a really good job.
Yeah.
And
I like her.
I
like both of them.
The thing with it is Rachel Nichols is on TV every day.
Yeah.
So
a little jealous.
That a little bit of jealous there.
She apologized
because somebody else
she apologized.
got that sideline job. And the NBA Finals, I see, we all know, major influence on media and on TV.
Right.
But you have to take into consideration, like, it doesn't really hurt you that you got pulled off of that.
Dave, real quick, Dave, I'm gonna elaborate on it. I guess, because how long has she been in the game?
She's been in the game a long time.
No, not Rachel Nichols, the other one.
A few years now.
Yeah, she feels as though why she got that job so fast. Whatever. That's what I think she's jealous of.
You got to put it in the work, and I mean, people could flip it and say, how did Rachel Nichols get her job?
Yeah, and I like her a lot.
And she's on TV every day.
Yeah, she does a hell of a job. Yeah.
Every single day. It's not like, okay, I'm picked for the finals, so I'm gonna do the finals, and then I'm gonna be moving on to something else.
She does the NBA.
She's on TV every single day, and she's the lead on that show.
Yes, she is. Yeah, she is.
So, again, people can argue or debate or discuss, like, what's her issue with this young lady. And I understand, like she said, that it could have been the struggling issues that ESPN has with their own diversity issues, which is probably correct. Like I said, we've seen what's happened with ESPN over the past couple of years, and that could very well have been the case in their decision. But you also have to look at it as, although she is African American, there's another female that's coming into play.
She gets some shout out.
Rachel Nichols also has to say, well, okay, cool, she got it, power to her, whatever. But I'm on TV every day. So you gotta sometimes you gotta kind of take that and ride with it. And again, like I said, it was in the confines of an ESPN meeting, allegedly. It was recorded and it got leaked out. Again, like I said, that could have been handled in a different way, and it may not have gotten to the point that it's gotten to.
Got a report.
But like I said, for me personally, if I was privy to that information again, I would have went along the lines of saying, like, look, Maria, listen, we worked with so and so, y'all seem to talk or whatever. Just watch your back. Okay, because just watch your back. I wouldn't even have went along and say that I've heard some things, to open that window. I would just left it kind of a blank statement. Like, look, when you're dealing with this particular person, just watch your back. Be mindful, of what's going on there in that situation. So I'm going to move on a little bit since we're on that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Sha'Carri Richardson not being in the Olympics. I think it's really crazy that she's not going to be on the Olympic team. And like we said, the Olympic roster is now set and she's not on it. Again, like I mentioned in the opening, that she's optimistic, very positive about the situation. And going back to the initial situation, she owned up to and accepted her irresponsibilities. Again, we talked a little bit about it last week, that the committee needs some adjusting. Marijuana is not a performance enhancing drug, and I just feel like at that particular level, those committees should be focusing more on those particular types of drugs, which would give an athlete an advantage over some other athletes. I also went as far as to say, as an African American, she lost her mother 2 days before she was supposed to run.
Yeah. That takes a toll. I'm not making excuses for her doing what she did, but
and she's 21.
She's a baby.
You know, a lot of people immediately, and we talked about this last week, not so much wrote off, but a lot of people instantly brought in the Michael Phelps situation. Yeah. And then I had people telling me, oh, well, Michael Phelps did it after the fact, and this, that, and the third. In a small way, it's still the same situation. Someone even went as far as to tell me, and Michael Phelps lost endorsements after the fact. Yeah, but
that was him.
We're saying after the fact, he lost those endorsements. And one of the things I mentioned last week was I have a real issue with this situation because it now leaves the door open for the Olympic Committee and the National Track committees to kind of be able to hold this situation over her head. She's 21 years old. She's being herself. She's got the nails, the orange hair, the tattoos. But that takes nothing away from the fact that she can run. Which is why she was at the Olympic trials. Because she could run. She put in the work and got herself there, set the times, records, and she got there. But again, I think this, for sakes of discussing it, and like we said, what I mentioned was that there's still racism in sports, and I didn't bring racism into this particular issue when people brought in the Michael Phelps situation where they were alluding to somewhat racial issues in that. I looked at it as somewhat like the business thing, like I just said, where this now opens the door for other issues, or this particular issue again to be held over her head when she comes back, because now they know what she can do. And from her perspective, you know, as young as she is, there's a chance that she can be right back on top when she makes her return.
She's the best in the world.
You know, and she's 21, so there will be more than one Olympics that she can compete in.
She's only 21.
And she had some world-class trainers, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And like I said, again, it just kind of gets under my skin where it seems like this is one of those things where they could at some point hold this over her head as far as her endorsements and her moving forward and hold it against her. And a lot of people, like I said, brought up the Mike Phelps thing, but I said it's a different situation where he already had those endorsements that were taken away. So he had already pocketed some money financially. He had benefited financially from that prior to them being taken away. This young girl could possibly not have the opportunities, or some of the opportunities that she could have, you know, because of this situation. So I think, again, the committee needs to revamp their testing and things of that nature. And I'm not saying that they need to just allow them to smoke weed or whatever, things like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that they need to focus more on the performance enhancing drugs, which is the bigger picture, and which would make a difference in the competition amongst those athletes. So it's now 12:11, 11 minutes past the 12 a.m. hour. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the Barcavius Mingo situation, and we're going to talk about the CC Sabathia article about the pressure on black athletes, the pressure that black athletes face to play baseball, quote, the white way. We'll see you back in just a few minutes, right? Stay here, get some popcorn, get your stuff together, get your snacks. We'll be back at you in just a couple minutes. You have been tuned in to Sports Rap, Heat 100 Radio. It's your boy D. See you on the other side in just a few seconds.
Hey, I didn't know they had different.